Brother Lawrence team. We really appreciate that. We appreciate having a clean church. And Donna has been just a godsend in terms of different technological things at the church, including this morning. So I appreciate that. And Steve, And Steve Camp, too. He's just been a godsend and a blessing, so we really appreciate our volunteers. Okay, so you got a map of our new church, and we're hoping that this will help everybody envision. And if you haven't tried that call at 9 o'clock, the directions are right on there. So if you put that on your refrigerator, it'll be right there for you to join that prayer at 9 o'clock. I know I set my cell phone for 8:53, and then it takes me a minute to realize what that is and what's going on. And then it just reminds me every night. The prayer review class, this apparently is not the right time. There's only one person signed up, so it'll be canceled for this Friday, and we'll reschedule it another time because it just seems like it's not going to work. And then July 17th, next week, we're going to have all the volunteer coordinators and any volunteers that would like to come. This is a meeting about how your needs are getting met or not met and how we can further assist you. And in your bulletin this week, I believe, I didn't quite get one myself, but I believe there should be a Unity brochure, was there? And a bookmark. Okay. Well, we had one of those weeks in our office, but they will next week. And then the reason that's in there is if you have a friend that you'd like to invite to church, it's easier enough to give them the bookmark and the brochure. Okay. And the joke, I found one easily. Dee Babel sent it to me. I appreciate that. So this little girl was walking home from school, and there was a big lightning storm. Was anybody out in that lightning storm on Friday when the wind kicked up? Wow, I was in a park, and it was like, is this going to be a tornado? A few trees came down, big branches came down. It was that kind of lightning storm. And so her mother got concerned, so she figured, oh, I better go walk and meet her. And so she got her in her car, and she saw her little girl, and every time there'd be a lightning strike, the girl would stop, look up at the sky and the clouds, and smile. And then she'd walk a little more, and the lightning would come down again. The mother was nervous wreck, and the little girl would stand, look up at the clouds, and smile. And the mother was like, get in the car, there's lightning, what are you doing? She says, well, God's trying to take pictures of me, so I'm smiling. All right, so today's transformational message is entitled Understanding Self, the Shadow, Part 1. So there's great freedom when we have understanding. You know, when we have a misperception with someone and then we have a greater understanding, there's great freedom because our mind doesn't do the monkey mind stuff about how could they think that or how did that happen. Everybody know what I mean? Yeah, okay. And so as we embark on this journey to further free ourselves, we remember that unity is practical Christianity. And so what that means is there is the word practice in it, so we get to practice every moment. And it's practical, so it actually helps us in life. It's about practicing this new stuff. Unity is a spiritual path or positive path for spiritual living. It's also known to be culturally Christian and spiritually unlimited. So it's more than a religion, it's really a way of life. And this way of life is a constant work. You know, it's constantly looking at our old ways, our old beliefs. It's dying to our old selves and then being reborn for that hope of glory. And so sometimes when we persist at this stuff, many New Thought writers and other writers, we call the people like us spiritual warriors. In the books by Carlos Castaneda, Don Juan speaks of the necessity for each human of knowledge to live like a warrior. A warrior takes everything in life to be a challenge, responding fully to what happens without complaint or regret. That's the spirit of a warrior. And while most people care about what others think of them, what matters most to the warrior is impeccability in their own eyes. So, are some of you warriors?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you got some warriors over here. Yeah, you got that we certainly know some warriors if we can't identify with ourselves as being a warrior. In the book, Siddhartha by Herman Hesse, he says that a warrior has the need of 3 powers. The ability to think, the ability to wait, and the ability to fast. So the ability to think is to be open and receptive to different possibilities in life. And you know, in Unity, when we're up here, when I'm up here, I guess, and other ministers and LUTs are up here, we give you thoughts to think about, but we don't expect you to take any of them as the word. We expect you to take them and ponder them and contemplate them, and then what resonates with you, use those in your life. And if it doesn't resonate with you, then just dispose of it. So the power of thinking is that power of clarity and courage to experiment, to investigate, to explore, to be like a detective, to really figure out what's going on. Now, one's ability to wait means patience. You got that right. Stillness of the mind. The ability to listen. You know, we always want the answer right now, but it doesn't come right now. And then the ability to fast means the ability to give up, renounce, surrender. You know, oftentimes when we surrender to something, it leads to a lightness of being, doesn't it? Doesn't it?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Because we're no longer plagued or burdened by it. We simply choose another path, another route. So fasting sometimes means just simplifying and giving up the things, like Karen so beautifully said, that we once thought were so necessary, we realize they're not necessary. So this new way of living requires persistence. It's always being vigilant to what our growing edges are, and rejoicing as we do so beautifully with the moments of truth that are shared, because no one is the same who came in here 6 months ago as a year ago or 2 years ago or 20 or 30 years ago, because some of you have been at truth for a long time. As we study this power of understanding, this is the power that we're studying for the month of July. The next 2 Sundays are devoted to understanding self. And this understanding self, I'm going to focus on the shadow. This is part 1. And then part 2 will be next Sunday, and that'll culminate with a 70-minute movie called The Shadow Effect and discussion. So what's this shadow that we're talking about? Well, Carl Jung says it's those parts of ourselves that we would rather not be. And that's probably the simplest definition. The shadow comes into existence when we receive the idea that we're not okay the way we are. Oh, by the way, there's a movie out right now. I'm going to go see it this afternoon. It's a Disney movie, and it's all about this stuff, and it's called Inside Out. Did you guys see it? Yeah. Okay. So this shadow stuff can happen at a very early age, or it can happen any time during our lives that we get the feeling that we are not okay. Anybody remember their first marriage? Okay. So, what was that?
First and only.
So, you know, I remember when I came out 40 years ago as gay, it was clearly not okay. I mean, and I got that message loud and clear. So, even though that's a part of you and that is who you are, it's not okay. So hide that part. And this, of course, caused me major stress because you're always trying to figure out in all those different new scenarios in your life as you go through, at least the decade of my 20s, who I could trust with that information and who I couldn't trust. So can you remember the first time you had the feeling that somebody said something to you or you heard something about yourself and you took it to mean, I am not okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what we do then is we try to hide that characteristic about ourselves. And some of us get really overwhelmed and we don't know what to do about it. So there's all kinds of addictions. There's overeating, overbuying, alcohol, drugs, you name it. So in Understanding Self, Debbie Ford's book, it's a great book. I've had the 8 CDs, which I will return to the library this week, so anybody that really wants to listen to 8 hours of this stuff, it will be there. Um, she has a book called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. Great title. And she writes, "Know thy shadow, know thyself." She says, within each of us lies a solid gold treasure. And this golden essence is the spirit, pure and magnificent, open and glowing. But the gold has been covered up by a hard shell of clay. The clay comes from our fear. Unconcealing our shadow reveals our mask. We must look at the mask with love and compassion, for there's great value and understanding behind it. So there's a story about this golden Buddha. And in 1957, in a monastery in Thailand, these Tibetan monks were put in charge of moving this big clay Buddha. And they saw a little hairline crack in it, so they got a little worried. And they thought, well, let's save that for tomorrow because we don't want to do anything to mess it up. And then during the night, one of the monks came out with a flashlight and just decided to check on this big statue of the Buddha. And he shined his flashlight all over it. And then when he reached the crack, he saw something reflected back to him. So curious, the monk got his hammer and chisel and he started chiseling away, and the clay started falling apart. And he just kept at it, chisel, chisel, hammer, hammer. And he knocked off big pieces, small pieces, and the Buddha got brighter and brighter. And after hours of work, the monk looked up in amazement to see before him a solid gold Buddha. So many historians believe that the Buddha had been covered in clay by Tibetan monks several hundred years earlier, before they were attacked by the Burmese army. Then all those monks died, and so they didn't really discover this until the statue was moved. So like the Buddha, our outer shells protect us from the world, and a real treasure is hidden within. You know, somebody tried to negate this week in class the years they spent drinking. And I said, no, you know, you were seeking spirit. There's a reason they call alcohol spirits. You are seeking. You just needed to move it over to another pathway. So there is a real treasure hidden within us. We human beings consciously hide our inner goal with a layer of clay, and all we need to do is uncover it by having the courage to chip away at that outer shell piece by piece. It's our social mask, it's the face we show our world, and unconcealing our shadow reveals our mask. So John Randolph Price, he's got a book, a great book, it's called Removing the Masks That Bind Us. And he talks about the different kinds of masks, and see if any of us can identify with any of these. So there's a mask of the victim, the tyrant, the manipulator, the abandoned, the opinionated, the fanatic, the worrier, the yielder, I would name that people pleaser, but the yielder, the meddler, the prideful, the obsessed, the deceiver. And so we have to ask ourselves, well, what are we? Are we a worrier, a meddler, opinionated, obsessed? And so to uncover our hidden treasures, it means taking a look. It means discerning, maybe asking, is this really true? You know, in Byron Katie's book called The Work, she was always saying, is it true? Is it a fact? Do you know this for sure? So here's an example of how to do this work with self, since we're going to be doing this for 2 weeks. So we might as well do it, right? Yes. So Debbie Ford, in her book, says her dad used to tease her by calling her Pig Nose and Bucky when she was a little girl. So her interpretation was her father really didn't love her and he thinks that she's ugly. So she noticed that these feelings still haunted her. You know, this is decades later, of course. So she decides, you know, they still haunt me, so I must face the incident. So she allows herself to experience those feelings of pain, humiliation, shame, and she can still feel all that as she's remembering the moments. And then she decides, I'm going to create a new interpretation of the event. So she takes out a piece of paper and she puts here new interpretations, and she puts here positive, and then she has another column, she puts negative. So in the positive, she puts I'm beautiful. So my father becomes nervous around me. The only way he knows how to deal with his nervousness is by calling me names that he thought were cute. Number one. Number two, under positive. In my father's eyes, these names were cute, and he used them for affection. Number three, my father loved me so much that he wanted to prepare me for the real world. He thought he could protect me by downplaying my beauty. Okay. On the negative side, new interpretations. My father hated me and was trying to damage me for life. 2, my father thought I truly was remarkably ugly, and the only way he could deal with it was by teasing me. So she has these new interpretations. Then she says she closes her eyes and she asks her soul, which of these interpretations empower me? So she gets real quiet. And she says it was the one where her father loved her so much he wanted to protect her for the real world. So she liked that. And then what happens is once we replace the old interpretation with a new one, that old pain is released. So Debbie Ford now realizes she no longer fears someone will call her ugly. And what's more, she no longer projects the ugliness she felt on other people. So when we do this work, it not only helps ourselves, but it helps on a global part, because we're no longer projecting that shadow outward. So we have all kinds of these masks, and the attempt to cover our shadow selves doesn't work. So it works when we really do the work to uncover it. And we know we're all energy, don't we? So what we have, and we know that energy can never be created or destroyed, so we have these things in us. And if we constantly try to repress, what's it like? It's like taking a big beach ball and trying to keep it 5 foot underwater. Does it work? No. Is it eventually going to surface? Yeah. Okay. So here's what she did. Here's that process. It's an easy 5-step process. First of all, she realized that something still haunted her. So that was number 1. Number 2 is she sat with the pain. She could remember it. This is really how it is. And then she decided to do the reframing process. She put new interpretations, positive, negative, and she kind of really relaxed, got in a nice prayerful meditative state, and said, now which one of these meanings empowers me? And the one came up that, her father was trying to protect her from the outer world, make it easy on her. And then she realized when she reframed it, when she had that new meaning, that her old pain dissolved as she brought in a new interpretation. So, has maybe something come up for you during this little message about some kind of belief? Some people are shaking their heads. I appreciate that. And so this week I asked us to be in observation. So some ways to get in touch with your shadow work, this is what Debbie Ford recommends, is observe our own judgments about people. We know when somebody or something happens, or we're watching somebody on TV, we know when we're upset by another person's behavior. Write down that quality that is most upsetting to you. And write down the opinions you have about the people who are closest to you. Because everybody's put in our life for a reason, aren't they? To make us grow? Yeah. And be sure to include, of course, your friends, your in-laws, your outlaws, your family members, your co-workers, your co-volunteers. And then she says the second part of that is make a list of the advice that you give to other people. What you're telling others to do to make their life better is often a reflection of what we need to do to make our lives better. Okay, so everybody clear on the work this week? Yeah. Okay. And so just kind of stay with it and remember the aspects of a warrior are to really think, to be patient, and to fast, to be able to renounce. And then remember the story of the golden Buddha and the golden essence that we all are, as we engage in our shadow work. Namaste.